What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Data Center Battlegrounds. Let me open a cold one for the boys first. There we go. All right, today we're going to cover a YouTube video. Erin Brockovich sounds the alarm on AI data centers expanding across America by MS Now 4 days ago. Let's get it.
Residents are pushing back against the rapid growth of data centers for AI across the U.S. amid growing concerns about the environmental impacts on communities.
This is the beautiful city of Maysville. Oh, sorry, could you not hear me? That might just be the two pre-existing data centers right behind me.
Georgia Power is expecting all of the tax citizens and the landowners here to subsidize their project.
Go look into China and their data centers. They are using like windmills and not using water.
18 of these turbines.
All right, so in the first 30 seconds of this video, we've had noise pollution covered. So that's an underrated, I think, impact of data centers that doesn't really get a lot of exposure in the news today. Noise pollution it's an esoteric type of impact, which means that if you live next to a data center, you're going to hear the high-pitched whirring of the machinery or the HVAC fans that are used to cool down these systems. And it's honestly a pain in the butt. I've gone on, Reddit's not the most accurate of places on the internet, I know, but I've gone on the Northern Virginia subreddits, and folks have recorded what it's like to live next to these data centers, and you hear it's a constant, almost high-pitched whirring noise, which goes on for 24 hours a day. I would find that incessant. I don't live next to a data center, but I find it comical that I've seen the noise pollution aspect a little ignored, or at least just brushed over. It's it's not a big deal. It's just deal with it, dude. You know what I mean? So power rates rising, that's also a whole nother conversation, and tax revenue with subsidization for data center projects by the state.
Back here, and they're wanting to put 41 in place.
And leading the charge is activist Erin Brockovich, consumer advocate and environmental activist, who is joining me right now. Awfully good to have you back on the.
So if you don't know who she is, basically, I can search her profile up really quickly. So, renowned consumer advocate and environmental activist, gained global fame for her tireless investigation into Pacific Gas and Electric (PG&E) in 1993, uncovering groundwater contamination in California that caused severe illnesses. So today she's advocating for communities, including spearheading national tracking for environmental concerns like water safety and AI data centers. So I must be honest, I've been in the environmental field for, not a while, maybe only, 5 to 8 years, but I never really heard about Erin Brockovich before. So it's very interesting to see her just emerge out of the blue and start tackling data centers. But yeah, the 1993 groundwater contamination case would be interesting to read about.
The show, Erin, thanks for joining us. And look, everybody knows you famously battled a giant gas company as portrayed in that Oscar-winning film starring Julia Roberts. And
well, apparently I'm not literate enough or cultured enough. I got to watch this movie, whatever it is.
now you are tackling AI. Prior to launching your website, Brockovich AI Data Center Reporting, you wrote, if data centers are so great, why are they being built in secret? How have companies managed to build hundreds of facilities under the radar? These things, they're huge, so many of them. You can't miss them.
Yeah, no. So, the whole thing started for me when I had 30 individual emails from one community about data centers. That's usually a signal for me that something's going on. And so I wanted to see the bigger picture about what was happening with data centers. So that's why we created the map. I was stunned within 3 days that 47, 48 states were reporting. And you just asked a great question because that's exactly what they all started.
So this is the map on the left-hand side on our website. I guess I don't have to show it to y'all because this video is showing it, but it's now 5,000 plus communities that have reported data center projects that are either operational, under construction, proposed, or just reports that they are putting. Just look at the scale of that, on the US. That's crazy. You have a bigger concentration on the East Coast, which I find interesting, including the Great Lakes area. The South is, again, more leaning towards the right side of the continental US, and then the left side with the West Coast barely has any. That's interesting. But we have, Data Center Alley in Virginia. So Go figure.
How this happened? They had no idea. These proposals came through. They felt like it was in the middle of the night. They were secret. It was behind closed doors. So they became very concerned at that point. Why did we not know? What is the secret? What is the push? And
So what she's referring to, in case you don't know, so from the case studies that I've seen, data center companies have been using a variety of tactics to get their projects like approved, right? So I've spoken with folks also from different states, and they have told me that, for example, there will be a shell company of a shell company of a shell company that is put on the public docket in like your local court or whatever. And then that's like a way of almost like hiding the identity of like the parent company, which, in some cases could be Meta, Google, like take your pick. Other tactics that I've seen involve like city council members like signing NDAs with data center companies to get the project bidded and built in the first place. That has like very enormous, ramifications because the constituents that these city council members have been elected to represent feel betrayed. And so typically like what happens, like there's a whole uprising, sometimes from what I've seen, some city council members can get death threats, which is like insane. And then in one case that I saw, all of them resigned after approving the project. So I don't know if that still counts, but those are some tactics that I've seen. And then let's see what else. Fast tracking of permits, that's also another big one. I mean, I have read stories of data center projects being built at the cover of darkness. So when everyone's asleep, they are building this. But again, like you would know, I guess, like if there's massive construction happening next to your house for a data center, unless it's like, located on the outskirts of the town, like far away. So that's a couple of other tactics I've seen.
they had no say in it. So that's what's really started so many of these communities across the country and their frustration about these data centers and how they got there.
And look, you've noted that you're not completely opposed to data centers. So what aspects of them are you against?
Oh, well, we're all concerned about data centers. I think there's a conversation here about AI and data centers.
Bingo. I think you can be pro data center, but the way that we're building the infrastructure is completely wrong. I mean, again, I've only been in the data center industry loosely, I guess, for like maybe a year and a half, 2 years now. But just think about it. You have like hyperscale AI data centers being built out all across the US. They require huge amounts of power. You have trillions of dollars like being built in terms of CapEx. And then the return is based on this like expectation that this like AI bubble, if whatnot, is going to pay off. Like it's like when you're at the poker table and you're going all in, like quite literally with your deck, and you only have like, ace of spades or something like that. So, it depends on what lens you view this. Unfortunately, data centers are at the confluence of many different conversations, like in the United States, like AI, the economy, inflation, geopolitical relationships with China, what they're doing. So it depends on what lens that you like see this from. But it's interesting that she's not against data centers like 100%. So she must recognize that there is like some maybe strategic importance in having said infrastructure on like the huge countrywide scale if we're trying to compete with China. But I agree that, like, again, the environmental impacts are completely, ludicrous in some cases. But
this isn't necessarily a conversation about AI. This is about the data centers and where you're placing them. And they're being placed on top of schools, on top of residents, in, hospitals, in locations. And again, you said these things are monstrous. And
they look ugly too. That's like also like a big problem. Like, no one wants this. Hopefully the cursor is working. No one wants this in their backyard, quite literally. Look at this like monstrosity. There are initiatives, I think, to like build aesthetically pleasing looking data centers so they don't look like, here in DC we have like all the federal buildings that are in this like 1960 like brutalist communist style that like I have disliked since I got here. And this reminds me of that a little bit. So could we at least like design them to make them look pleasing if you're going to poison the community? So some dark humor there.
Happening from proposal to construction to running, Let's talk about the non-disclosure that's really frustrated people. They're extraordinarily concerned about their water. They're extraordinarily concerned about their energy bills, which many people are now reporting in the facilities that are up and running. They are double and triple the electric bill. They're very concerned about all of this on top of an already strained infrastructure system. Not to mention, they're very worried about the land, what's happening to the wildlife, and most importantly, what is the future impact on their health, and the just enormous reports coming from people about the noise. They said it is so loud. This is a 24/7 situation, nonstop, just in your ear, humming, hissing, and buzzing. And people just feel like they're going crazy there.
I mean, I would, like, if I was living next to a data center and I heard that all day. I mean, like, um, having a high-pitched whirring buzzing sound, whatever you want to describe it as, like 24 hours a day is insane. But I've also read, like, these data center companies have like soundproofed them to a certain extent as well, but they can still hear stuff. So it gets like a little tricky with regs because like I was reading that like they can't emit noise above a certain like decibel, which could like start causing like actual like harm to your eardrums and stuff like that. But what about psychological harm? You know what I mean? Like we don't really account for that, I think, in like sound pollution. You know what I mean? So I don't know like how we're going to even tackle issues like that. I mean, maybe you can't like construction is typically between the hours of like what 9 to 6 or something like that. Beyond that, you can't build or do anything. So maybe it'll follow a similar principle where you can only operate between those hours and then for the rest they got to shut it down. But data centers like have to run 24/7 with uptime, otherwise they start losing money. Like the longer a data center's offline, like the companies literally start losing money. So it's like you almost have to like keep them running 24 hours a day because if not, you're going to lose money. So
So AI advocates say that these data centers are necessary for growth and they will provide opportunities for technological advancement. They're going to create high-paying jobs. Is there a way for these centers to coexist with residents who share their communities with them? Do you see that happening?
Not at this size, and not if it continues to be secret, if not letting people have a voice at the table. Explain to me what this is. Not if their utility bills are going to go up, not if they're going to lose their water or their well water's lower or they're having to dig deeper.
bingo. This is exactly the problem right here. It's a storytelling problem. The data center industry has been, it's not a secretive industry necessarily, but just like a closed industry for the past like couple of decades from like folks that I've talked to, and now they're thrust in the limelight and they have to deal with this. But also at the same time, if you build them at such scale, there's going to be problems. Like look at just backtrack and let's see like how big that was. Like hold up. Like look at that. Like you have is that an irrigation farm of some sort? And then like a colossal data center like right next to it. That's crazy. That's like a football field. So imagine all that all over the place. So anyway, I messed up the video, but
I think they will collide and they won't get along. And what I'm watching, and I don't like what I'm watching, is once again, we're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Here with some new industry that's coming in with no, again, oversight, no studies or anything. It just gets rammed down your throat and you have to accept it. And
I mean, there are studies that are being conducted by different states. So that's not necessarily like that's not 100% true. Maybe she's referring to like her local area. Like there are some states are pursuing to do like, for example, if you pass a moratorium, they will conduct like a feasibility study. But the problem with that is that it takes like a year to analyze the data, to collect the data, to publish the results, like that type of thing. So there are studies that are happening, but I think the bigger issue here is what she's referring to is that like the permitting process is accelerated like greatly. So for those of you who have never taken an environmental legislation class, you have the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA for short, and that's been a roadblock for every industry, housing, construction, data centers. And so like this administration wants to accelerate the NEPA permitting process to compete with China, to build out this, infrastructure to export the American AI stack. And so like, yes, they are going to rapidly accelerate NEPA as fast as possible to build out as much infrastructure as possible. So it's called speed to power, like the timeline that it takes to build out like a hyperscale or a, big AI data center. So
And then we're going to find out 5, 8, 10 years later, oh, oops, this was a really big mistake.
Hey, Josh, can you put back up her website that shows these data centers? Because, Erin, since starting your website in April, more than 3,600 AI data centers have been cataloged on this interactive map that we're showing here. Right now, there are more than 4,300 data centers nationwide. Have you?
I mean, the U.S. has 5,000 plus data centers last time I checked. So
Heard from any of the big companies involved in the construction of these centers? And what can communities do to push back and be heard beyond your website?
So I have not heard from any of the IT, tech companies. And we've had over 8,000 individual submissions. And this is people reporting what's actually happening in their backyard. We've pinned now over 4,700 reports. We're backlogged in getting the reports on there. But what I am seeing, and I have never seen anything like this in my career, let alone it be the entire country, a bipartisan issue.
bingo. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat or independent. This is now a like bipartisan issue, which is affecting like both sides. And this is why with the upcoming midterms in November, you're going to see, I bet you, I mean, there's a reason why the super PACs exist, like for the future, I think they're called or whatever. Not Back to the Future, not the damn movie, but like it's basically like a super PAC group funded by all of the big tech CEOs that are pushing for pro data center, pro AI like legislation. And so this is going to be a bipartisan issue. You'll have candidates that are like pro data center, pro AI, anti data center, and AI. And it's up to every state, I guess, to figure out like how to deal with it. The problem is that like if you have every state that's like essentially writing their own playbook on like whether or not to build a data center, whether or not to train an AI model, whatever, right? So infrastructure, funding, workforce, these are factors that affect a state's economic development strategy. And so like let's say red states are predispositioned to build out more, blue states are not. Does that create some sort of like wealth gap? Does that reinforce existing wealth gaps? Does that cause innovation to slow down? These are all things I think that like we're gonna have to figure out as like a country, like moving forward. But I mean, yeah, like I'm not surprised that the Lone Star State has 464 projects that are active. Is that DC right over? Yeah, this has to be like DC/Virginia over here, the 603. Here's a fun fact. By 2030, Texas will be forecasted to be the biggest data center market nationally. Virginia is currently the biggest one so far, according to the research that I've done.
But how they are organizing, they are educating themselves, they are networking together, they are informing themselves. And the one thing that they're doing is showing up. They are showing up across the country. And, we are now seeing about 79 plus municipalities who are putting on bans, moratoriums, pauses. We want more information.
Remember, there's a difference between a moratorium and a pause. I was reading this morning that, what was it? Or no, a friend of mine texted me. Where was it? I'm trying to pull it up on my phone over here. Yeah, the Monterey Park vote has been the talk of the town amongst activists in the Bay Area for California. We can't pull this off in the heart of Silicon Valley, but it's definitely making folks pay more attention. The moratorium movement is officially in the state now. No one saw that coming. Can you imagine if California, the state that has Silicon Valley, can you imagine if they pass a moratorium? Oh my God. I don't think if you're in the AI policy world, there was a bill that like gripped the like all the frontier AI model labs. I forget what it was. It was SB 8067 or something like that. California AI policy bill. Let me pull it up real quick. SB AI bill that was vetoed. I'm using AI to search up my AI policy bill, y'all. That's like really cool. Shit, I can't find it. But anyway, there was an AI policy bill in California that would have like put, I want to say like some hard limits on like the size of like frontier AI models. I think it's like 10 to the 25th power for the, it was not token count. It was like the size of the model or the process, something of that sort. It was an arbitrary number, and like a lot of folks in the AI industry were like, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't just put like an arbitrary number. Where does this come from? Yada yada yada. This was during the Biden administration, and it got ultimately got vetoed by Governor Newsom. And then like I did some digging and I was like, wait a sec, why? And then it turns out all the big tech companies in California, i.e. Silicon Valley, literally lobbied the hell out of the bill and it didn't pass. Go figure. But this was a while ago. I'm trying to still find it. Was this it? SB 1047 was an AI safety bill that was oh, here it is. Yeah, no shit. I found, oh damn, I can't curse. SB 1047, the Safe and Secure Innovation for Frontier AI Models Act, was a sweeping AI safety bill that was vetoed by Governor Gavin Newsom in September 2024. It sought to impose strict safety obligations on developers of the world's most powerful AI systems. Yeah, but he vetoed the legislation, citing that the bill was well-intentioned, but it applied regulations too broadly and could have stifled innovation. Yeah, i.e., pretty much he got, the whisper of the big tech companies in his ear was basically saying like, no, you're not going to do this. Like, we're lobbying against this, and it worked.
Like some studies, we're seeing states now doing the same thing. And that is all coming from the people, their voice, and showing up again in numbers about how important this is at a very local level to their city councils, that you hear us, that you see us, and why this is going to be a problem for us.
Let me remind viewers, if they're interested, the website is Brockovich AI Data Center Reporting. Erin Brockovich, you keep on keeping on, and we're awfully glad for it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's the end of the video. So I'm not, I've been seeing data center trackers like pop up all over the place, like with the Resource Hub database that like I have. It's interesting. I wonder if there's a way to collate all the data together. But yeah, this is who she is, Erin Brockovich, and then her website, Erin Brockovich. Oops. Brockovich Data Center Tracker. There we go. Yeah, this is her website right here. So key concerns: energy, water, e-waste, noise, scalability and efficiency, location risks. Yeah, climate resiliency is something that's not really talked about a lot with data centers, which I find interesting as well. This is the map, 5,000 community reported nationwide, and then there's videos at the very end, or news at the very much. So yeah, go to the website, I guess. I'll if you're interested with AI data center reporting from Erin Brockovich, I'll leave it in the comment section or the about section for this video. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on another episode of Data Center Battlegrounds. See you later, y'all.